Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to be positive. I mean, after the match, I definitely was struggling in the locker room. I don't like losing, and yeah, I think for me the main thing, I'm sure my team and everyone's gonna tell me like, you did well at Rolling Girls. Don't like.
The athletics world was completely turned upside down by Coco Gauff. She retaliated with a $50 million lawsuit rather than a tweet or an interview after a Fox Sports host chose to open his mouth on live television. Yes, $50 million. Have a question for you. Do you believe Fox finally got what it deserved, or did Coco go too far? This isn't your typical sports feud. One of the biggest names in tennis is calling out one of the loudest voices on TV in the most vicious, premeditated manner imaginable. Let's go back in time. Before the Miami Open, everything began with what ought to have been a typical broadcast point. One of Fox Sports hosts took a risk when the network was covering tennis as usual. And I mean reckless when I say daring. This guy turned it into a personal critique of Coco Gauff, questioning her maturity and attitude and even claiming that her victories were more hype than skill, rather than doing what commentators are paid to do, which is to assess the game. That is a true quote, yes. The worst part was that he stated it in real time. On national television, there are no edits or second thoughts, just plain contempt. Now, criticism of Coco Gauff is nothing new. She's heard it all before. Too youthful, too sentimental, too exaggerated. However, since this was not a sports critique, it struck a different chord. This was an attempt to publicly degrade a 19-year-old who has already achieved more than most athletes would ever hope to.
How does it feel to have been vulnerable like that in a room of 24,000 people and I don't know how many millions of people watching at home?
It feels human, I think. I think being an athlete, people kind of disregard that side of us, the human side of things. And, people say so many things like, number 3 in the world and you're doing this or you're playing like this and you should be better and things like that. But like at the end of the day, like I feel like I've already, if I stopped and didn't pick up a racket tomorrow, I have a career that so many people would dream of. But I think I just showed people what it's like to be a human, and I have bad days, but I think it's more about how you get up after those bad moments and how you show up after that. And I think today I showed that I can get up after feeling the worst I've ever felt.
What then took place? In a matter of minutes, the internet exploded. The hashtags #respect and #defend Coco became popular. Supporters were incensed. Serena Williams, Naomi Osaka, and several WTA players were among the athletes who spoke up for her. To be honest, that provides all the information you require, because it indicates that the line was torched rather than merely crossed when other participants openly criticize a TV network for being out of line. Here, however, Coco demonstrated to everyone how true experts handle situations. She refrained from going online. She refrained from yelling. She didn't share a heartfelt video. For a while, at least, she remained mute. Because Coco was already preparing her next move while everyone else was arguing over what she ought to do. Furthermore, it wasn't a publicity gimmick or an apology tour. It was a legal action. Yes, it is correct. Coco Gauff began examining the broadcast with her legal team every sentence, every video, and every subsequent response. And the sports world was rocked when the papers were eventually released. Accusing Fox Sports and the presenter of defamation, mental suffering, and career harm, Coco Gauff has launched a $50 million complaint. Respect was more important than money. Since $50 million isn't pocket cash, let's face it. However, it wasn't the money that mattered. The message was the point. It is not acceptable to disparage athletes for the sake of ratings and then ignore it. It was evident from this lawsuit. Athletes are no longer simple prey. Legal professionals were quick to provide their opinions. This isn't just about damages, a civil lawyer stated. It has to do with responsibility. National television, you cannot disparage someone's character and expect no repercussions. She is correct, as Coco's notoriety extends beyond her personal life. It's expert. Her business is her image. She has millions of admirers globally, sponsorships with well-known companies, and an impeccable public record. It is not only offensive but also detrimental to a TV host's career when she suggests that her success is fake. Endorsements, tournament invites, and even sponsorship renewals might be negatively impacted by such a declaration. Thus, Coco's group pursued them vigorously. Like a playbook, they outlined each legal claim. Defamation. The claims were untrue, deceptive, and purposefully harmful. Emotional anguish. It wasn't a critical tone. It was a humiliating experience. Professional injury. Fox jeopardized her earnings and relationships by casting doubt on her credentials. That is not commentary. That is sabotage. And Coco handled it with such grace.
After everything that happened on Thursday night, did you wake up feeling a little differently yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I just realized that I don't want that moment to happen again, like on court for sure. And yeah, I'm not someone who, like, I don't know, I don't want to show, like, I guess, weakness in moments, but after the match, I was thinking, like, maybe it's not a weakness, it's just showing the things that happen in my head and not keeping it inside to the point where I can't play. But I felt with a new perspective, seeing how the support I've gotten since that moment, just seeing how proud of people are of me regardless of how I do here. So today I felt a lot lighter going on court, and I hope to continue feeling that lightweight for the rest of the time here.
She wasn't upset when she eventually spoke in public. It wasn't protective. It was composed, self-assured, and well-written. I've always let my game do the talking. In addition to hurting me, spreading false information disrespects all athletes who put forth a lot of effort to attain their goals. Fairness is at issue here, not celebrity. Boom. Just the facts, no drama, no ranting. Fans adored it as well. Thousands of people commented on her article, referring to her as a queen, a leader, and an inspiration. Even analysts, who always criticize everyone, had to acknowledge that she handled it flawlessly. Coco Gauff just redefined athlete accountability, remarked an ESPN anchor. She is educating the media about the fact that athletes are not props. She is correct, too. Because Coco and Fox are not the only parties involved in this litigation. It concerns how athletes, particularly female athletes, are portrayed in the media. Commentators have gone too far for decades, transforming objective analysis into personal assaults. They have made fun of matters unrelated to athletics, such as relationships, emotions, and attractiveness. For years, athletes were forced to accept it, keep smiling, and go on. But that is no longer the case. You can criticize my serve, not my character, Coco is saying. And more athletes ought to establish that limit. Naturally, Fox Sports was not amused by this. One of such generic remarks was released by their PR team right away. As an athlete, we admire Coco Gauff and wish her more success. The remarks weren't meant to be personal insults, they were just opinions. Translation: please don't sue us because we made a mistake. It's too late. Legal insiders say Coco has a good case, and the lawsuit is proceeding. Because purpose is important in defamation law. Additionally, the tone was clear in this instance. Even impartial viewers could see that the remarks went beyond simple criticism. They were intended to make her feel ashamed. At that point, Fox went beyond the bounds of free expression and ended up costing you $50 million. To be honest, it's about time. Because for far too long, TV hosts have behaved as though athletes can be insulted just because they are well known. However, fame does not equate to helplessness. Coco's action demonstrates that the younger generation of athletes isn't scared to retaliate and will make use of all available resources, including the legal system. This event may go down in history as the pivotal moment when sportsmen cease to be convenient subjects for shock value programming. Let's now discuss what transpired following the lawsuit's media attention. The host who had previously boasted about telling it like it was abruptly stopped talking. There should be no statements, tweets, or arrogant outbursts, just total quiet. The kind of quiet that typically occurs when a lawyer calls. Fox Sports, on the other hand, were quite alarmed because this was more than simply a PR issue. It was a nightmare for the law. You can apologize for poor analysis, but slander cannot be undone. Not with thousands of recordings, broadcasts, and clips on social media. The video disappeared from Fox's website in a matter of hours. Pretending it never happened, their editors discreetly erased it from replays. However, the internet never forgets. It became one of the most popular sports videos of the year as fans saved and reposted it. Here's the worst part. Coco didn't even have to stand up for herself. It was done for her by the public. People criticized the hypocrisy, claiming that the same network that promotes free expression was suddenly incapable of handling responsibility. Even commentators from competing networks continued to make fun of Fox for turning a tennis match into a lawsuit headline. The finest way to describe it was by one journalist. Perhaps you shouldn't have a microphone if you can't discuss an athlete without disparaging their character. Just that. And Fox's situation got worse the longer this went on. Because when legal experts began dissecting the case itself, they all came to the same conclusion. Coco possesses receipts. She is correct, too. The distinction between criticism and defamation is obvious, according to one media attorney. You are criticizing someone's reputation rather than their performance when you suggest that their achievement is phony or unjustified. To put it another way, Fox ran past the line rather than merely crossing it. This is when things became even more uncomfortable. Prominent sponsors were contacting Coco to offer their support rather than to abandon her. Nike, New Balance, and several major IT businesses publicly commended her for advocating for herself. The power dynamic changed at that point. Coco was no longer merely an athlete. She represented athlete empowerment. One of the largest media companies in the world is being held responsible for its statements by a 19-year-old woman. Consider how crazy that is. The majority of players would have simply made a generic statement, let their PR teams handle it, and moved on. Coco filed and made public a lawsuit bearing her name. And it was successful. Because the lawsuit altered the debate rather than only making headlines. All over the nation, sports networks began discreetly reviewing their commentary guidelines. Memoranda regarding tone and polite conversation were distributed by producers. Posts regarding young athletes suddenly became extremely cautious. Everyone's terrified of pulling a Fox moment, a network insider quipped. Even sports fans who typically don't give a damn about lawsuits were pleased. Because everyone has seen this pattern in their hearts. When a young athlete achieves success, the media disparages her rather than applauding her. They doubt everything about her, with the exception of her true talent, including her demeanor, attitude, and worth. And Coco had had enough. She didn't vent on the internet. She didn't appear on chat shows. She did something about it. She didn't react emotionally, which is why this struck so deeply. It was calculated. You can't dispute that. Legal sources claim that Fox's attorneys started negotiating right away. Coco's team apparently rejected their offer to reach a confidential settlement. Not yet, anyhow. This wasn't only about making money, therefore they wanted the general public to witness it. The goal was to establish a precedent. Every sports network will receive a clear message if she prevails. Performance is subject to criticism, but identity is not. Statistics may be analyzed, but reputations cannot be ruined. Experienced journalists acknowledge that this case could change sports media. Because networks' entire shock value model collapses if they begin to lose lawsuits like this. To be honest, that's a good thing. Perhaps it's time to start praising accuracy instead of loudness. As the narrative progressed, Coco continued to do what she does best, win. She played some of her best tennis of the season, attended competitions, and grinned for spectators. Each triumph seemed like a fresh reminder. Someone who is based on self-control and self-assurance cannot be destroyed. And that's what makes the point so clear. She's not upset. She is concentrated. The public began to support Coco more and more as Fox attempted to undo the harm. People love an underdog narrative, but they enjoy a comeback even more, let's face it. By defending herself. Coco Gauff did more than just protect her reputation. She came to represent any athletes who have ever experienced rudeness on live television. It has nothing to do with ego. It has to do with justice. The WTA even issued a statement endorsing her right to preserve her reputation. They placed a strong emphasis on polite reporting and mental health, in essence. It's a courteous way of saying, Mia, stop acting like bullies. Here's the lovely irony. The Fox anchor who once referred to Coco as overhyped actually made her more powerful than before since the lawsuit transformed her from a tennis champion into a worldwide symbol of athlete empowerment. Fans came together, sponsors increased their efforts, and all the networks that had previously disregarded her now want to feature her on their shows. Despite their attempts to degrade her, Fox ultimately gave her the greatest publicity victory of her career. The lawsuit is still pending today. However, legal experts believe Coco has a good chance. The message is already very apparent, even if it is settled out of court. Athletes can't be treated like it's 1999. Not in the era of quick accountability and social media receipts. Coco Gauff shown that contemporary athletes are not helpless. She is astute, and fearless in defending her value. To be honest, that's what makes stars different from legends. Because in the end, this is a significant development in sports culture rather than merely a lawsuit. Coco served notice in addition to justice. What do you think then? Was it right for Coco Gauff to file a $50 million lawsuit, or should she have given up? Please share your opinions in the comments section below. Additionally, since this tale isn't finished, please remember to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell if you believe that athletes should be respected both on and off the court.